Good evening. Happy Monday. Welcome to Power Talk. And I am so excited about tonight. It's all I can do to not just jump up and down in my seat because, guys, this is the best book I have read this year for sure, and perhaps in a long time. It blew my hair back. It's called Apollo and Me. The author is Cate Montana. Welcome, Cate.
Thank you, Jean. Great to be on the show, and I love hearing that.
Well, the first thing I did was go write a review on Amazon because I was just completely blown away. And then I bought copies and gave to a bunch of my friends because I knew they had to read it too. So it's spreading like wildfire. You guys know that I interview authors every week. So for me to say that, it's really kind of a powerful thing. On the surface, this book is a really juicy romance novel. But, oh my God, built into this is some of the deepest spiritual information, esoteric, metaphysical stuff about where we come from, how the world was created, what it all means, where we're headed, and what we can do to make sure that where we're headed is beautiful, perfect, happy, joyful heaven on earth. So, did I about sum it up, Cate?
Yeah, and a little bit of gender equality thrown in there.
Okay, yeah, that too. Yeah.
One of the things that just amazed me writing this book is that I've just been this big. I've been a journalist for 35 years. I've been writing nonfiction books about enlightenment, ego psychology, spirituality for years. I worked with the filmmakers of What the Bleep Do We Know? So I'm very, very left brain science based. Mm-hmm. And so to write essentially a love story, a romance novel, it was just like blow my mind. And it took everything in me to even admit what I'd done, let alone try to have it published. But my agent went nuts over the story, and she just said, this has got to get out there. So I was like, okay.
I get that. And I think as a science-based person, very grounded, some of the stuff that came through to you had to have really shaken you down to the core.
The scientific stuff I knew, and you asked me just before the show, how much of this is really real, and I have to answer again. I don't know how much of this story is real. I don't know how much of it is me, and my information and my spiritual background and knowledge bleeding through. I don't know how much is Apollo's, because I had a vision of him on Mount Parnassus in Greece in 2015 when I was writing another book, a nonfiction book about ego psychology and enlightenment. And he just blew me. I mean, this beautiful man appeared to me and said, "Hi, I'm Apollo. I have things to tell humanity. Let's talk." So, I didn't know what to do with that, Jean. I just kind of like staggered down the mountain afterwards. It was broad daylight. It was morning. If anything, I'd had too much Greek coffee. and I was just like, where do I put this in my mind? And even better, what the hell does he have to say to humanity? Yeah. And but I'm on a deadline writing this other book, so I had to finish the E-word first. But it's 3 days after I finished the E-word, I literally just sat down at my computer. I tuned in. He had beautiful copper-colored eyes.
I love that picture on your website. It's like, oh my God, you could fall into those eyes.
You could fall into those eyes. And so I just focused on those eyes and the essence, the energetic that I remembered that, he never appeared to me again so far. I'll make that caveat so far.
Oh, darn.
Darn. And this story just started to unfold. And the most unlikely kind of thing I ever would have written, Jean.
I get that, because it's way out. It's different, but it's beautifully different. And the esoteric information in there about who the gods were, the Greek gods, and how all of this happened. I mean, I've gotten bits and pieces of that I've been studying, esoteric material for the last 20 years, I suppose. And before that, I was a Bible scholar. So, I've really been honing in on some of this stuff. And I discovered archons quite by accident through the worst pain I ever had in my body. And when I started trying to figure out where did this pain come, I discovered the concepts of archons and tulpa stuff, and figured out a way to release that all those implants from my body to stop the pain.
Interesting.
And that was all I knew, because that was, God, maybe 8-9 years ago. And when I Googled the term archon on the internet, the only place I could find anything about it was with gaming. There was one reference to the Nag Hammadi library and the Gospel of the Archons. And that was the only thing that didn't relate to gaming.
Wow.
Now, if you go out there now, it's all over the place and talks about, ETs and all this other stuff, and I just had to move forward because I knew that part of my mission was to clear that energy off of people, because it was holding us back, because it keeps us in fear, and it basically saps us totally, and we're manipulated by it.
Yep. So much of the information that came through from Apollo was about sexual healing, especially the feminine wound.
Right.
And that was what really shook me to my core, Jean, is because I thought, probably like most of us in the spirituality movement, I thought I dealt with that decades ago. I did the primal screaming. I pounded my pillows. I did est. I blah blah.
I'm so sorry.
Actually, I didn't do est. I did the forum, which was.
I'm so sorry. That's hard work.
I did it very quickly, actually. But so I thought I'd been there, done that. But when Apollo started talking about the wounding of the feminine and what women have been through, and I started getting flashes and glimpses of what I am convinced are my own past life sexual abuse as a woman, and being chained and being chattel and owned and marginalized, it's like, wow,
we've all been there. And if you're a man watching this show, trust me, you've been there too.
Absolutely. The men, the sacred masculine has its own wound. Men are dealing with their own, what. But
but they've been women too in other lifetimes, and so they've dealt with this as well. Yeah, so don't put it off lightly, guys.
No, not at all. So, Apollo took me on a deep dive into my epigenetics, into my DNA, into my past history as, for 3,000 years of inherited abuse. It's locked in my DNA. I mean, epigenetic science has proven that we are the sum total of the emotional experiences of our ancestors. Yeah. And it doesn't get much more emotional and traumatic than forcible rape and abuse and torture. So, etc. So that was one of the real sticky wickets I had to wade through and then write about. But so much of Apollo's message is about sexual healing, and it's for such a long time as a spiritual person, I just wanted to get out there to God. I just want, please, God, get me out of here, beam me up, Scotty. And I would pay lip service to the idea, well, everything is spirit. And I go, yes, everything is spirit. My body is spirit. My sexuality is spirit. Everything is spirit. Get me out of here, please. And, it was just, I still had this split between heaven and earth. And especially between my spirituality and my sexuality. Yeah. It was like, I can read books and I can nod, and it was all lip service. Yes, yes, yes. So Apollo just really taught me that I needed to embrace and embody this divine essence of this life that I am, that we are, and take it down to the core, take it down to the root chakra, and experience the blossoming all the way up. And he said, you can't will your way out of here. And you can't just meditate your way out of here. And living your life with your eyes closed in meditation is the only way to cope with being here, is not living.
No. And you actually went through a very primal rebirth process in this thing. I mean, as I was reading the book, I could feel that, and you describe it, and it's visceral.
And I've had a lot. Oh God, it makes me makes me.
Yeah, I'm about to cry too. So
yeah,
don't feel bad.
Exactly that. And I've had any number of women. I mean, the book has just been out a couple of weeks. But I've had a lot of women say that, oh my God, it just took them into their depths and uprooted all of this in a beautiful way. But they still had to address it and really acknowledge it. But once we've done that, it's just like, oh, okay, it's up and out. Yes, we can move on.
Yeah.
You know, and I saw so much of the rage that occurred. I mean, just recently with the Me Too movement and the whole Brett Kavanaugh debacle of Christine Blasey Ford's testimony and the anger and the outrage that arose in women around the world. Well, duh.
Yeah.
This is so in us because we've been so marginalized and ignored for so long. And this whole, feminist movement of being like, out in the world and having a guy's job and breaking the glass ceiling. Yes, raw, great. We had to do that. We've done it. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I've really been reminded of is that equality is not sameness.
No.
There's this essence of the feminine that has not been explored, that's been locked in a box. Talk about Pandora's box.
Yeah, literally.
Because the wildness of the feminine, the life force itself, the juiciness, the uncontrollableness of the multidimensionality of the feminine. The masculine force is very structured and logical and left brain and rule bound. That's the masculine complementarity, the gloves off, wild monad of the feminine. And no wonder men have been scared of us and wanted to lock that away. And it's like chaotic and it's insane and it's hysterical and just lock it in a box. But there's such fertility to that chaos. Mm-hmm. Feminine. And it's just a bigger order of magnitude of structure beyond masculine logic.
Yeah, and I guess I personally believe that there is a big plan. I don't know what Apollo would have called it, but I think all of this had to happen in order for us to get where we are today, to be able to bring us to that place of balance, and that's really where we have to be.
Absolutely. We've had to, we couldn't have done anything else. Everything happens for a reason. Well, it really does. And there's a pattern afoot, an intelligent pattern afoot that is rolling out, and we're either going to roll with it or be steamrolled by it.
Exactly.
We're either going to get it together and start doing the beautiful marriage of heaven and earth, masculine and feminine.
It's interesting because in my protocol for InnerSpeak, there's actually a file about that, and it's called Meeting. Mm-hmm. And the place where heaven and earth meets is in the human.
It's in the human body. It's in the human.
In the physical, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
it's been a ride and then some, and it has changed my life. This book has changed my life.
Maybe mine too, because I've only read it once. I'm getting ready to go back and read it again, and get it on a different level, because I think there are multiple layers to this book. And I couldn't put it down because I had to get to the end, to see how's it going to end, But it's time for me now to start it for the second time. Wow. So do you reckon that there's going to be a sequel to this?
Yes, there is more to the story.
Yeah, okay.
There is actually 2 more books. And it's like and I keep thinking, oh well, should I start writing? And then it's like, no,
not yet.
There's plenty of time. And so my journey right now is to embrace this peaceful acceptance and openness of allowing the message to get out there, allowing the book to find its feet and find its audience, Apollo's message to find its audience, and just be graceful about it, rather than, I've got to get to the next book and I'm going to, my old masculine way of getting things done, personality. It's like, no, you've moved to Maui. You finally found your real home. The island of spirit has pulled you in. It's all about beauty and grace and flowers. And it's like, just be, sister. Just be for a while.
And I have a sneaky feeling that you'll know when the time is right, because I've got a sneaky feeling Paula's going to show up again and tell you, okay, it's time, you know?
Probably.
So, yeah. What could be worse than that?
I don't know. I'll have to put up with it somehow. I fell in love, pure and simple. I fell in love with Being Jean, and I'm really clear. I obviously was a priestess, a temple priestess at the Temple of Apollo back in the day.
And I'm sure that I was as well. And that's one of the reasons why this book fascinated me, because I've got some, cellular memory of that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it so rang true. Every bit of it so rang true in the core of my being. So yeah,
And there's so many things that I certainly didn't know. I mean, the book took me for such a ride. It's like, I don't know what I don't know what to give away and can't give away, but how the gods were created.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And to know that Apollo he was holding the door open for the goddess to stay alive and vibrant in our hearts and in our minds, even as the Abrahamic religions in the patriarchy started to just snuff out the goddess religions starting around 300, 400 BC. There is this diminution of the goddess in importance, and I had no idea that in the Apollo cult is the only male god that had priestesses in his temple and guarding his precinct and carrying his truth, and all of the other masculine gods had priests.
Yeah.
He was like, no, he said, I wanted to keep the door open to the divine feminine. And that's why of course, the continuation of the Pythia, the prophetess of Delphi, she was a married woman. And that the wisdom of Delphi coming from these women lasted and ruled the Western world in philosophy and art and science and politics for 1,500 years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. And it's interesting because I've never been to Greece. Where I've been drawn to go is Turkey, and I'm getting ready to go back there again. And I was on the plane headed to Turkey the first time I went about 5 years ago now. And I heard you're going to complete the circle. And I'm still not quite sure what all that means, but I do know that my work has taken off like wildfire. I've got over 150 practitioner teachers in Turkey, and they don't speak English. Luckily, I've got a woman who's translated all of my work and my books into Turkish.
You never know where your audience is. You never know where your people are.
And you just have to go where your heart guides you, just like you did to Greece. Because if you hadn't been listening to your heart, you wouldn't have ended up on top of that mountain, and maybe we wouldn't be talking.
Most certainly we wouldn't.
But, for sure, this message had to come out. It's really interesting about the wounding of the divine feminine. When I do clearings and archons come up, and they don't come up all the time. They don't even come up very often. But a lot of us are carrying that burden. And I actually see the implants, and a lot of it looks like clotted blood in the womb. I mean, it's wounding in the womb. Some of it looks like metallic implants, but, anybody, it's just, it's pretty disgusting, and I hate it when I have to see that, but but I do. So it's like, okay, we're going to let this move quickly.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful at my age. It's basically a love story also. I mean, the love interest in it is between an older woman, Catherine, she's 60, and Apollo appears about 35.
Yeah.
And so she has all of these hang-ups that she drags into the story about her aging and her woundedness and her own. I mean, even when she was younger, she was like, well, do I measure up sexually and as a woman, and what is a woman? And I've had people ask me, is this autobiographical? And I have to say, yes, I can't separate me from Catherine.
Yeah, I'm sure. And one of the most beautiful things is, and maybe this is giving away, but not too much, the test that he gives her early on in the book, where, here's this literal Greek god, half her age, and he says, so, I'll give you your youth and vitality and beauty forever. Will you worship me?
Will you worship me?
Yeah. And that's it. I'm not going to say anymore. But I mean, that's what I think a lot of us would like, but at what price?
At what price?
Yeah. And
I have to say that, wow, I just realized this. This book has done more to reconcile me to getting older than anything in my life. And
you've got a ways to go to catch up with me, honey. I'm 71. So, so yeah, I would love to be on vacation and have a 30-something show up and so I was drooling.
And see you for who you really are.
Yes.
And that was so much of what Apollo is all about, is like, I see you for who you are. You're this beautiful, divine being. You've had lifetimes and lifetimes of experience. I see it all. So what if you're in a body that's aging? It's beautiful to me.
Yeah.
It's who you are.
And he had to drag her kicking and screaming to acceptance of that, because I think we just have been beaten down over the eons, and certainly in today's time by the media, to not want to accept ourselves.
Even when we're young and beautiful, we don't see ourselves as young and beautiful and accept ourselves.
Yeah.
So how the hell are we going to manage self-esteem and feel like a full-on sexual, sensual, blossoming female at 65 or 70 or 75 or 80? How are we going to manage that if we didn't manage it at 25?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Christmas.
And I think the other lie is that you have to try to make yourself look, so you better go out and spend thousands and thousands of dollars on touching up, nipping and tucking, which people I don't think realize the fallout from that.
No, they're just short-term gratification and the desperate need to feel good about themselves when they look in the mirror.
And the body is the one that suffers. And so many people don't understand that the body's got a soul, just like we do. And when you do that kind of stuff to your body, what are you doing to her soul?
Yep. The body weeps.
Yeah.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
So I'm 67, okay? So to move into such a place of acceptance of my body and my sexuality, and all things possible, all gloves off, no looking over my shoulder for, the rule book. It's just like, no, not looking for approval from anybody or a man. It's like, wow, Apollo has damn well liberated me.
Yeah. Hallelujah. That's all I can say.
Hallelujah. And pass the taters.
And, and bless his heart. That's what we say down here in the South,
That's right. And the whole message especially the message about where the gods come from and how we are still entangled in this trap of externalizing the divine. And the really, I'll say this has got an underlying plot of a duplicitous God that has it in humanity.
Yes, and I so believe that to be true, and that to have you acknowledge that for me in this book, because I thought I was the only one that knew that.
No, and the name of that particular God,
yeah.
I mean, I had to think twice about naming the God that has it in for us, that's trying to keep humanity in conflict and feeding an external source of divinity supposedly, and giving it power. I had to think twice about, oh my God, can I say the name? Can I write that? Am I going to get a blowback from this religious group and that religious group? And then the final analysis was like, well, if I do, I do.
Exactly, and it may happen. But the Master Jesus, I think, came here to warn us about that. Because he basically threw away, he said, there's only 2 commandments. So all this Old Testament stuff is not applicable anymore. It's just love yourself, love your neighbor as yourself, and love the God that is yourself. That's what he was trying to tell us, that you better be discerning.
Yeah. You better be discerning. And that whole insight about why Jesus really was crucified and what the force behind that was, to try to complete and to realize, oh my God, I mean, to have a Greek god, entity, archetype, delusion, fantasy, whatever it is that I have been in communion with, basically tell me that Jesus was a feminist.
Of course he was.
Of course
he surrounded himself with
women. Absolutely.
And then they've turned it to make the beloved disciple not be Mary Magdalene. It's like, hello.
Yeah, exactly. And that, so much of what he was trying to do in his own temples was to keep the gateway open for the coming of the Christos, which is the changing of the consciousness in us to realize divinity within woman and man, and therefore the equality of woman and man in not the eyes of God out there, but the eyes of God in here. So, that whole movement from the Greek pantheon to Jesus the Christ and Mary Magdalene and what he had to say about all that, it was just like, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, did to me too. Wow, we could go on for hours. I know we could, but we're running out of time. So I need to make sure that the viewers know how to get in touch with you. It's catemontana.com, CateMontana.com. And you'll find out about her other books, which I haven't read them yet, but I'm going to after I read this one again, because I'm taking the rest of the summer off. So viewers, there's not going to be a power talk until after Labor Day, because I need a break. And so does my producer.
Apollo is a good, rip-roaring summer read.
Yeah, exactly. Even if you're not interested in the spiritual, esoteric stuff that's there, it's a kick-butt romance novel.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you. And it's on Amazon, or you can order it through any bookstore.
Yeah, and thank you for writing this, for having the courage to step out and do this for humanity, humanity, all of us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bless. Thank you, Jean.
Oh, thank you. And so viewers, until next time, which will be September, please remember, people who take responsibility for their lives create the reality they desire. I love you all.